we have Andrew and Naomi Knox, and they're going to be talking to us about homeschooling. Now, Josiah and Juliet have been homeschooled by Andrew and Naomi for the last 4 years. And homeschooling's actually become quite popular over the last few years, particularly as parents observe the moral decline and the agendas that seem to be pushed in schools. So Andrew and Naomi are going to share with us some of the reasons to homeschool, how they go about it, and what homeschooling can look like in a day, a year, budgeting, family dynamics, social aspects, and all those other questions that you've always wanted to know but always been too afraid to ask. So they're the ones we're going to ask tonight. So the reading I wanted to do was from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, which you probably guessed exactly what that is already. It says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." So that's our reading for tonight. So Andrew and Naomi, welcome to Family Matters. It's really good to have you on again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I was going to sort of jump straight into it. Like last time we talked to you, you were talking about family relationships and how to get over anger in children, and basically what you taught us in your last time was how to build up those relationships between parents and children to create a really beautiful family. And so now we're probably going one step further, and you've gone homeschooling. So tell us about that. Tell us about what that means with your relationships with your children, and why you've chosen homeschooling over sending your kids to school.
Well, so thanks Robert and Sharon. I guess like we can only talk about our journey and our experience, and obviously other people have their own experiences and reasons. And I guess in some ways, it's taking the next step in the discussion, but it's also taking a step back in time, because we decided to homeschool around the time or before the time we realized that we needed to invest more in the relationship and go through the process which we talked about in our last Family Matters.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't realize that we needed to improve our relationships till after we started homeschooling.
Okay.
The reason why we looked at homeschooling was that our son Josiah was falling behind academically at school, and so he was about 10 years old at the time. He was falling behind academically at the school, and the school didn't really seem to be that interested in doing anything to help him. And he was already on their remedial programs to catch up, and he was making improvements, but he wasn't improving fast enough to ever catch up. And so, and the school seemed happy with that. And we knew that he was a boy with like capacity to do well, but he wasn't thriving. And so what we felt as parents is, that teacher's got 30 kids, and they're going to get another 30 kids next year. And what happens to them later on in their life is really not that much of a concern to the teacher, but this is our only son. So what happens to him for the rest of his life in 5 years' time, if he's still not caught up, the emotional and effects of that matters to us.
Yeah,
So that prompted us to think, we need to kind of think about how we're going to try and to make those improvements. And then, but together with that, we also realized that there were other things going on emotionally with Josiah as well. He was in a pretty dark place. I think last time we talked about, how he was talking about suicide and other things, some pretty, not belonging, some pretty dark things like that. And that's kind of what that sort of emotional side is what pushed us towards homeschooling rather than just going to a different school.
Okay.
Yep.
So
can you just talk us through a little bit on how the relationships have developed and the what that looks like, and I guess encouragement for parents in general? about building relationships, whether they choose to homeschool or whether their children are still in mainstream schools?
I think it's about taking the time. Well, obviously, you know, we shared a whole lot of strategies from Gordon Neufeld that we learned, which I had to learn. And it's taking that time to really talk with your children, like really, like heart-to-heart stuff, and about being a safe place. You as an adult being a safe place for that child's emotions and their thoughts and their feelings, that they can bring those out, and you as the adult are not going to shame them or blame them or hurt them or ridicule them or reject them because they've said whatever it is.
So what do you talk about when you've got past the, you know, hi, how are you? How was your day? Did you sleep well? Well, during the night. You know,
Yeah,
those
well,
basic questions. What did you do at school? What do you talk about after that?
I don't know, we just talk about anything and everything that comes up.
Yep.
And we do spend a lot of time not talking because we've, particularly like this last week, we've been in lockdown. So you've got hours and hours. But no, we talk about hopes and dreams. I ask how they felt about situations. We talk about books that they've read or we've read or I've read, or movies that they've watched or we've watched or I've watched, what the messages are behind them, what's implied, which characters you associate with or resonate with and why. So you're just delving a bit deeper. We just do jokes all the time. I'm just amazed at how much laughter we have. You know, because the kids are getting older now, so their sense of humor is really developing. It's really nice. And in the evening when Andrew gets home, we ask about his day and we chat about that, and he asks about our day, and they show him what we've done, if they've done anything, you know, if there's something to show, that is, as opposed to a mental or a verbal thing that happened.
Yeah.
You know, and so anything we read, we discuss. Anything we watch, we discuss.
Yeah. Has homeschooling sort of allowed that to develop more, do you feel?
I think the only reason is that you have a whole lot more opportunity to do so.
Okay. Yeah.
I think any parent can be the safe place for their child's thoughts, feelings, dreams, emotions.
Yes.
And any parent can have a deep conversation with their child. You've just got less opportunity. You're just going to have to take the opportunities in the car on the way to sports practice or music lessons, you know, that sort of thing. You've just got fewer hours to do that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, you mentioned lockdown. This sort of brings us on to the next question. Like, because we've got lockdown, there's a whole lot of kids at home at the moment doing schooling at home. What's the difference between schooling at home and homeschooling?
Homeschooling is a lifestyle, and schooling at home is trying to bring the program from school and run it from this venue. And obviously I've never done lockdown school at home, so I don't know particularly, but what I hear from other families is if they've got children a similar age bracket to mine, is that they've got their son on a Zoom in a Zoom class on a computer in one room, and their daughter on a Zoom class in another room on another device, and then their third child in a third room on a device, and then dad trying to run a business quote thing on another device, and then mum trying to, and you've got all of these different schedules, and you're trying to have space so your microphones don't all interfeed with one another, and that is just sounds like a nightmare. Whereas when you homeschool, you do a lot of stuff, or we started doing a lot of stuff together as a family. So you're all learning this section of history. You're all learning this chemistry. You're all learning whatever the other thing is. And we even did math together. because we started at the start of a program when we started homeschooling, rather than just carrying on where the kids were at. And really, you only do things differently based on the child's abilities. But the topic and the content is the same. So you do that all together as a whole family, whereas
so the difference really is completely relational. Schooling at home tends to be a very individual thing, whereas homeschooling is a together thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and lifestyle.
Yeah, and definitely like when you send your kids to school, like what you know, I guess both of us did. You know, like they go into like a very structured program and a very organized time schedule with their classes. And essentially, you know, I know, you know, schools have evolved, but it is kind of essentially like a one size fits all style approach, you know, through the classroom. Whereas with and then school at home, lockdown school at home is essentially replicating that, but in the home. Whereas homeschooling is you're able to, you don't have to educate or run your schedule or program or your curriculum in a one size fits all approach. You can think about how that's going to work best for your family, for, you know, the way you work, for the way the kids work. You can customize it to what suits, what's suitable and effective for you, times of day, locations. You can do all of those things. You're not restricted or limited to just sort of one approach or just an approach that's imposed on you. And that's one of the reasons why, like you know, I know when we first sort of talked, when you and Naomi first talked about this, Naomi was like, well, you know, like we homeschool our way, but like you talk to the next homeschool family, they homeschool a different way because that's what works. And so you won't find like two homeschool families that do homeschooling the same way. And that's kind of part of the beauty of homeschooling is that it gives you that, and you don't have to be like somebody else because you and your kids are not like exactly the same. So that's like,
and I would imagine then that the whole day becomes a chance to learn or a chance to do things together. You're not just limited to a certain time. It's kind of like, you know, it's your whole day is open to how you do things. But could you share with us what maybe your week looks like?
Yeah, and so I have that. I can show you exactly what it looks like. I have that on a whiteboard.
Okay.
Because that way, at any point in the day, if someone's trying to organize something, they can kind of see when our scheduled stuff is. You know, if Josiah's wanting to go to a friend's place or have a friend over or connect with someone online or go to a shop to get something, now that he is more independent, and same with Juliet, she'll take herself to the library. It just means that our whole program is up there, displayed. So what I've done, I don't even know if you'll be able to see it.
Wow. Yeah, that's
So
good.
what I've done is I've got my whiteboard and I've put in permanent marker the days and the, you know, obviously the days and things, and then any of our scheduled stuff that's fixed is in permanent marker. So it leaves all our spaces available. So then I've got the evening stuff in there as well. So Bible class, hockey training, band training, the kids' Bible study times with Dad in the evening, family matters, I think. Oh no, I can't fit that in on a Monday evening.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then I've kind of got in green that like we're between swimming lessons and hockey training, so that's when we'll schedule chiro appointments or doctor appointment or the supermarket shopping or dropping those books back to the library, and kind of not count on that time as be at home and get educational type things done. So we do that here and there because we're already out and about. Josiah has a standing arrangement on a Wednesday afternoon with Seth, his friend who goes to school. So Wednesday afternoon after school, they meet up. So it just means that everybody knows that that's happening on the Wednesday afternoon, and Juliet and I can utilise that time. And then, as you can see, Thursdays and Fridays are our lovely big empty day for doing lots of book-based learning, we call it, because all of life is learning, but there's some stuff that happens specifically from books. So you know, reading and your writing and your science and other things all kind of are more book-based. Your handwriting, your spelling, it's all based around books, literature studies. But, you know, your hockey, your sports, your skating, your Bible study with Daddy, the family Bible readings, chatting over dinner, doing the grocery shopping, visiting the library, they're all educational experiences. It's just that they are not based around a book. So we label our school work book-based learning. So this enables us the gaps. So we see here we've got a big gap on a Monday morning, and then we've got Thursday and Friday that are free for sort of big chunks of book-based learning and anything else that needs to happen in the week.
Right.
Yeah. And so the weekend on this side is very small because this is primarily our home timetable, and I squeeze in CYC and Sunday school and meeting and down here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then notes down the bottom. So, you know, there used to be lockdown level 3 across the bottom, or, you know, Uncle Tim and Auntie B arriving on whenever, or Dad home from, you know, whatever. Like there'll be something in there.
Yeah. So just a question that pops to mind. Obviously, you've got your schedule there, but how often does other things sort of pop in there that just sort of derails your plans for a day or a week or whatever it is? How timetabled can you get to be to keep to your plan, and how often does other things sort of derail your plans?
No, it's a tricky question, but I guess the thing is, and this is true for us, it's probably true for a lot of people, that you go through phases where you go, you know, I like routine until I don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Until I don't.
And then I have routine again, and
Yes.
you know, you kind of end up going through that. And I think everyone does that to different extents, you know. But there, I guess one of the things is, you know, like anything within that, you know, if you're going to homeschool and you're going to take on that the responsibility of education, because that's it's a legal requirement in New Zealand that children need to be educated. It's the law. If you're going to take that on and say we're going to do that, and obviously we're not just limiting ourselves to an academic education, it's a spiritual, emotional, moral, physical, you know, we're doing the complete person. You actually need to do it. You know, well, it's not just like a free-for-all. You do actually need to do it. And so what that means is that sometimes you've actually got to step back and assess whether that's something you're going to do. You just got to make a choice to go, you know, do we want to be so spontaneous, and which we generally are, but then you to do whatever, done. But then you get nothing done. You know, so you just got to kind of balance it up and go, you know, and maybe ask yourself some questions and go, well, do we want to drop everything and do that, or do we want to say no, or later, or make some other decision about that, so we can stick with this till it's done.
Yes.
You just got to make that decision.
And at least you do have to allow yourself some flexibility in it, you know, to allow for sickness or, you know, just other things that do pop into a week.
It tends to stress me out more than it stresses the kids. They're quite happy for everything to be derailed all the time.
Okay.
Because I'm the one who's responsible for the education. I will be held responsible. And so I have to give myself permission that actually it's okay. I've got someone who's in bed sick. It's actually okay that no homeschooling happens today. Because actually nurturing a sick child is actually more important. Or we've run out of time to do the 3 topics we were going to do today, because actually we did the Bible readings at breakfast, and we actually had a really good discussion, and it took us half an hour. And you have to go, actually, that's way more valuable, and that is still a valuable book-based academic deep thinking activity, and you have to just sort of Yeah, as the parent, you have to give yourself permission to allow some of those things.
Yeah.
But I'm at the stage now with my kids where I'm going, you know, you've set a goal. That means that this day you need to do it. Like, we don't have another opportunity. During lockdown, you've got all day. But like you saw, we've only got Monday afternoon, a Monday morning, and then we don't actually have any real big chunks of time till Thursday, Friday. So that actually means that when it gets to Thursday, Friday, we actually need to do big chunks.
Yeah.
Because we're too busy out and about on a Wednesday and a Tuesday to, to do stuff.
So that brings me to the question of do you have a curriculum? How do you know that your kids are keeping up with the kids that are at school?
Okay.
You know, are there exams should they sit or something? Or, you know, like, you know, you've been teaching for 4 years. How do you know they're not 3 years behind or 6 years ahead?
Well, I don't really, because I don't look.
That's a good way to be.
So, and if you are worried, I mean, you can all the educational standards and all the educational state curriculum is all available free. Most of it's online, so you can look up at that year level for that subject, for that area within that subject, all the sort of standards this child should be able to, and then for this area of the subject, and there'll be within that there'll be levels of competency. That if they're mediocre or whatever, average or excelling in that, there'll be different there'll be a whole matrix there, all on the education Ministry of Education website. So that information is available that you can go and compare. One of the big things that I wanted with pulling the kids out of school, particularly for Josiah, was to get him out of the educational race and onto his own personal ladder of learning. So you are just taking that child step by step to deeper understanding and deeper and more advanced educational skills step by step, which you're taught to do at Teachers College, by the way. You know, the next learning step and the next learning opportunity. It's just that it's really hard to do that with 24 children. So I really wanted Josiah on that individual ladder of learning rather than a race, because he was comparing himself with all his peers and knowing that he's coming in last by a long shot. And that's quite a huge emotional burden to be living with. So occasionally I have panics, like at the end of last year when I suddenly went, oh, Josiah's finished his first year of high school and his writing's really not up to scratch. You know, and I go panic, and actually I've only got 4 more years before this child's 18 and we're done. So you do have those moments, but then I think, well, what we're doing is I can see growth and I can see progress, and I can work with my child to accelerate that program and that growth.
I guess, you know, I suppose in some ways, like if we maybe step back a bit, like in order to homeschool, you need to apply and get approval from the Ministry of Education. So the government, you can't just decide, I'm going to pull my kids out of school and homeschool. Like once you make that decision, you then need to apply and get a legal exemption from the government, because sending your kids to school is a legal requirement in New Zealand. So, but there's, it's not a difficult process to go through, obviously, because we did it, so it wasn't too difficult. But what you need to do is you need to be able to demonstrate to the ministry that you are going to be able to educate your child or children as well as and as regularly as they would be educated in state school.
Yeah.
Right.
Like those are the two, and then you got to go through all the curriculum areas, whole big application. But that's essentially what you've got to demonstrate in all different curriculum areas. You've got to have to demonstrate that. So so that's kind of at the start. That's part of the application process that you're doing, that you believe you can do that, and then they accept that or ask more questions. They're really good about it, by the way. They're not anti-homeschooling or anything like that, at least not at the moment. But the other thing is, so that's kind of at the start. At the other end, you think, like, what are the big sort of mark or milestone in like education? Well, really the bit that matters in an educational sense, school sense, is your leaving high school, university entrance, you know, like your way of passage from school to the next thing, you know, school, university, school to polytech, school to the workforce, school, whatever it is.
School to an apprenticeship.
School to an apprenticeship. It's that transition. So, you know, which generally happens around sort of 17, 18, 19. So, so it's not actually necessarily all about like what's happening, you know, along, you know, while they're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 along the way. It's, you know, that's kind of the important part. So you think, you know, you can go through and find, well, like, what does that look like? How do I achieve that? What does achievement look like? And it turns out that there's actually, so the New Zealand government runs NCEA, New Zealand Certificate of Educational Achievement. But actually, that's not the only certificate that is an acceptable certificate to have either by a New Zealand university or a polytech or a apprenticeship or whatever. There's other options. And you can, what you can do is you can look at that. So you as a parent are looking ahead. Your kids don't look ahead because they haven't learned to do that yet. But you as a parent are looking ahead and you're thinking, so where do I, what do I think this child is going to be looking to do, or what pathway do I think is the most suitable for this child? Do we go NCEA? Do we go Cambridge? Do we go IB? Do we, you know, do like, you know, GATS or SATs? You know, do we go some other, you know, do we do ACE? You know, the
accredited Christian education.
Well, there's a bunch of them, and then look at what that gives you at the end, and then you've got like something you can work towards, and then you can work back, and you can go, okay, so if we're going to be at 18, they're going to be here, then, you know, now my child is 14, then between here and there we need to make this sort of progress. But you as a parent can see that, and then you can help sort of guide them along that way. But that's kind of the, it's important to kind of keep that sort of long-term thing in mind.
As far as keeping up with peers, your children pick it up, you know, so they're aware of what their peers can do, and they'll come to you as a parent and say, Mom, I need to be getting better at X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
You know, and which is great, because actually then they're motivated to do it. And you're like, darling, look, let's find some stuff to help. Going back then to your other part of the question about do I have a curriculum? Well, I guess I do, but it's not all one.
Yeah, we've got
a very eclectic way of homeschooling. So I use one program for math. I use a different program for literacy and reading, writing stuff. I do a different program for spelling. I do a different thing. I do 3 different things for science. And what else do we do? Oh, we've got various health, sexual education books and stuff that we've found along the way that we use. I'm trying to think, what are your other major curriculum areas? Oh yeah, we do stuff online for, yeah, we've got something different for languages, we've got something different from computer programming, we've got, yeah.
And obviously so, your sport is like hockey and whatever else you're doing. And
yeah. So whereas sometimes you can buy whole curricula. So if you choose to do accredited Christian education, then they will provide you with everything for every subject, and you'll follow that. If you do Sunlight, then they will provide everything for every subject. If you do Ambleside Online, again, they will provide you with a schedule and activities and stuff for every subject.
So I guess the thing is, like, if you ask 5 homeschool families about curriculum, you're probably going to get 15 answers.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, but
where do you find it all?
But the thing is, like, you can just ask people. So, you know, like if you ask a homeschool family, you ask a bunch of homeschool families, they'll tell you what they do, and then they'll probably also give you several other ideas that they've looked at or moved on from. And then what you can do is you can then go and look, and you can either do that or you can choose something else. But once you start, if you start to talk to like homeschool families, you'll very quickly build up a an array of places to go to look for curriculum.
When I first started, so for the application to the government, you have to say what curricula you'll use for each area. And what I did was I got out a book called 101 Top Picks Homeschool Curriculum by Kathy Duff. And basically it's a book, big fat book about that fat, like this sort of size. And
Wow.
she goes through the 101 top picks for homeschool curricula, divided into the 5 or 6 curriculum areas. So she'll have the top picks for math and the top picks for science and the top picks for, so they're the most popularly used curriculum for each area. And that's where I came across our math curriculum. And also another family, Dave and Kerry Alexander in Melbourne, had said, we think Josiah would enjoy this program for math, and it was the same program. So we've gone with that, because I read out the blurb to the kids and I said, how about doing this for math? And they're like, yeah, sweet. And then I found it in Auckland libraries for free. Yes.
Perfect.
Awesome. So I guess that leads on to another question. Is it expensive to homeschool?
I don't think it's any more expensive than being at school. So at school you pay your donation, and I think for our two, when they were
Uniforms and,
when they were like in primary school, I think it was about $700 a year.
yeah, I think it's
Or
about
so, the school donation, and then there's another $500 in uniform. Then, because obviously we were shifting from another country, so you had to change uniforms.
Yep.
And you can't buy it secondhand, you've got to buy it all new. So there's
well, that was that school.
I was at school. So you got $700 or $800 in fees, $500 in uniform, and then every other week, then there's $45 for a stationery box. Then there's another $45 per child for the term swimming lessons. And then every other week, there's a slip comes home that says, oh, we're going on an excursion, it'll be $5 for your child. Oh, we've got an incursion coming, so that's another $1.50. Oh, and we've got this thing, and oh, and your child needs a reading folder. Oh, and your child needs a and your child
It just seemed like they were always asking for money.
like,
Yeah.
I was just like, free education.
Yeah.
So
When you can turn that stuff down.
so we,
But I guess homeschooling is I guess as expensive or as inexpensive as you want to make it. Like, you don't have to do the same things that other people are doing. One of the other things also is that the New Zealand government does give you like
an educator's allowance.
An educator's allowance. It's twice a year while you're homeschooling. It's so much for the first child, and then a little bit less for the second and third. And I can't remember exactly how much it is. I think it's
600.
I think it's about $600 each time. So I think it's about $1,200 a year.
Which is actually, I mean, we've got 2 kids, so that's, I think we put in a bit more of our own.
We put in a bit more of our own money. So, but that definitely takes the edge off the costs.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed what you can find in the library or what you can find online.
Or secondhand. Families selling stuff all the time.
Again, so one of the things that we did is we hooked in with Auckland Home Educators, and like wherever you are, there'll be like a homeschool type community, which if you kind of hook into, as much or as little as you want to, usually you'll find that within that there'll be people at different stages. So these people have been through theirs, and they're looking to get rid of stuff, and if that's something of interest to you, then so you don't always have to buy things brand new. And that's a place for great advice, but it's also a place, and even if people don't have it, they might know someone, know someone, and it just sort of helps you that pathway. Or there's libraries, a lot of like council libraries have some of the homeschool resources. So
what sort of home support groups, you just touched on that, what sort of homeschool support groups do you have? Are you involved in anything like that?
Yeah, so we're members of the Auckland Home Educators, which is kind of a big umbrella group, and I'm pretty sure there's one in Wellington, and I definitely know there's one in Christchurch, so that it's AHE in Auckland and WHE in Wellington and CHE in Christchurch, I think. And they're kind of like big umbrella organizations, and they help. So if the government needs to liaison with the homeschool community, they'll go through AHE, and they, instead of them trying to contact every homeschool family, they'll contact AHE. AHE will put the notice out. AHE run workshops for like professional development for parents. They run a one child's event every term, COVID permitting. So they do a science fair in the term 1, a history fair in term 2, a cross country in term 3, and an arts festival in term 4. And they are kind of to be on a par with and to a standard that the fairs are within schools. So sometimes your child will do a science project and it will go to the inter-school fair, and then it will go into like a national fair and that sort of thing, if you know, they work their way through. So that's kind of the idea of that. So they're there for sort of legal support, professional development, curriculum support, and opportunities for the kids to participate in larger academic activities. And also it just means if you're organizing something, you want to invite to a bunch of people, you've got 400 or 500 families you can contact very quickly and easily about an event. I'm also on a mailing list for homeschool outings, which there's an amazing mother who coordinates a whole bunch of interesting outings every term. So that might be whitewater rafting, it might be kayaking down by Puhoi, it might be snorkeling at Goat Island. The one we're going to this term is tree adventures out in Woodhill Forest.
Yes.
The Friday of the ecclesial camp, so we'll be pooped, but anyway. You know, it'll be mountain biking, it'll be a trip to Kelly Tarleton's, it'll be a trip to Chelsea Sugar Factory, all of those things which are cheaper if you go as a school group. So she coordinates that.
Another student?
I go and I pay for myself. It's really cool. But that's, you just pick and choose what you want to register for. So we went to Hobbiton as a family as part of that, because she was organising, and we got it for half price because she had so many homeschoolers. We basically took a whole day to get everyone through Hobbiton. So it was great for Hobbiton. They got hundreds of people through, and it was great for us because we got it at half price. We would never do it otherwise. So those are kind of special interest things that you look at the list and you go, oh, we'd like to do that, or we'd like to do that, you know. And then I, with another mum, started a local social support group a few years ago, and that just started with me and her, and we would just have play dates at each other's houses every week, and then we slowly grew it, and now I think we've got 9 regular families, and we've got about 18 families on our email list. And what we do is we're a little bit more
So that's just like a morning a week?
That's an afternoon. That's about an hour and a half to 2 hours every week, so that we can provide one another with social support, and our kids can actually see each other and the same group of kids often enough to actually build friendships. And we pick an educational theme for the term, and we base our get-togethers around that term. And some of them, like this term, because we want to be outside while it's still summer, we're doing the geography of Auckland. So we're going up the volcanoes, around the lagoons, visiting the waterfalls, all kind of East Auckland kind of things. And there's a mother for each location, and she just has to find out some facts about that location. So I did Mount Wellington for our first one. So I looked up what stone fields used to be for the Māori and also for the early Europeans, and talked about that. We talked about the trig station at the top and geographical mapping, and we talked about geographical features and just things like that. But there was plenty of time to walk up the mountain, for the kids to yahoo and to chat and to have fun. But there's a little bit of a theme, and some, hopefully at the end of the theme they will have learned something. We're going to go out to Ainbury Farm and do their volcanoes educational program. We've got a geologist coming to talk to the group. You know, so we want social time, but we also try and have some educational time, and it's that's mixed ages. So our youngest in the group at the moment is 3 or 4, and our oldest is 15. So you've got like a massive range.
Okay.
And
so
that's
it sounds like there's plenty going on to keep children quite socially integrated then?
Yes. Yeah, and socialization is always a big question for people who are not homeschooling, because they're worried, like you're just at home with your kids all the time, like you never see anyone. So when you're at school, you turn up to your class and you have your social scene laid out on a platter. But that social scene are all children born within 9 months of you. Never again in your life are you going to be in that severe peer structured environment. Once you leave school and you go to university, you are with all ages. And then once you leave work, from uni or whatever secondary education you do, and maybe you don't, a tertiary, you're in the workforce and you are mixing with everyone except probably the really young. But then you go to your church community and you are mixing with everyone. So when you're homeschooling, you actually do have to be a little more proactive because you don't have it laid out on a platter, but you socialize as a family. So as a family, you go to the cross country. As a family, you go to the science fair. As a family, you go to your little weekly homeschool group. As a family, you go to the swimming lessons. And so if your child is having difficulty socializing, you as the parent are right there alongside to actually teach them some social skills. And there's a lot of research and very sound study that say that children's vocabulary, the sophistication of their vocabulary improves when they are with either children younger than themselves, because they're the big kids, so they're going to use sophisticated language, or with older kids because they've got to keep up with the older kids.
Right.
Yep.
Rather than when they're with
With the peers,
then actually they're all at the same vocabulary level, they're all at the same social skills level, which is really useless because they haven't got anyone to learn off. So personally, I think homeschoolers are better socialized, not worse, because they are constantly socializing with a wide range of people. Because you're socializing with your friend, but also his older siblings or her older siblings and their baby sister or brother all at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And quite likely their parents.
Yeah, and the parents, and they've got to, the parents are homeschool parents, and so they're interested in who this kid is, so they're going to talk to your child.
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah.
So another question I have, just another scary question. If you're thinking about if someone's thinking about homeschooling, how educated do you have to be? I mean, you're a teacher, so it's probably easy for you. You've been there, you've done the degree, it's sort of like, let's come home, we've got 2 kids in my class. Wow, this is easy. Like, what a breeze, But,
Total breeze.
Some of us aren't educated. Some of us left school at 15 or 16 and, like, now what?
Yeah, so if I can just interject.
Are you educated to be a parent?
Are you educated to be a parent? So usually, so usually, you're not prepared for that. So knowing being a teacher is a comfort to people who have no experience of homeschoolers, and they feel worried about it, and they can feel good about themselves because Naomi's a teacher and therefore it's okay. But the reality is that actually, because homeschooling is so different to school and the way it works, it actually doesn't really help at all. In fact, you've got to unlearn that. You've got to unlearn that so that you can actually teach your kids at home, because you can't treat them like students in a classroom.
Right.
Because you're your mum first and then your teacher.
Yeah.
It's quite different. And when this reading session is over, or this spelling session, or this very painful maths problem is over, you are still mother and son or mother and daughter.
Yeah, they don't go to a different teacher.
They don't go to a different teacher, and they don't go home to their parent. And you don't have like a whole afternoon until 9 o'clock the next morning for whatever happened during that maths session to kind of diffuse. No, you're now going to go and have lunch together.
Yeah. So the
and now
relationship's
you
quite
want
important.
that child to get their hockey gear ready or their flute stuff ready to go to their lesson, and actually you just went over maths.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you just got to be conscious of that relationship as you carry on. But I guess just to come back to your question, you know, how educated do you have to be? You don't really, but what you do need to know is the most important thing is you need to know the skill of learning. Like you need to know how to learn.
Or be willing to learn alongside your child.
Yeah, because what you're really teaching is, I mean, you're teaching content, and there's a certain amount of content that's important. You know, there's stuff that kids are just going to need to know, and so, you know, time to sort of stuff it into them. But you know, there's heaps of things that you don't know anything about, and I don't know anything about, and that you never got taught at school, or what you weren't interested in, but they're interested in it. So you're going to learn that, and you don't have to know about it, but if you know how to learn, or have some ideas, the skills to learn, which you can develop. If you don't have them, you can develop them, and then you just do that with the kids. But what you're doing is you're teaching them some content, but you're actually at a deeper level. You're teaching them how to learn, because even if they get to the end of, whether they're at state school or even at homeschool, you get to the end, they're not going to know everything. Like nobody's that good a teacher. Like it's just not going to happen. If you think your kids are going to be completely educated at it, you know, like can you just park that ideal for a moment? Like it's just not going to happen. So, and they're going to come across things that they want to learn in the future. If it was for a job or whatever, do they know how to learn? If they know how, so I always kind of think like there's really sort of two things that I want to see. I mean, I want the whole growth of the child's character and all those sort of obviously important things. But I guess from a schooling side of things, for me as a dad, like there's really two things that I want out of homeschooling the kids to be able to do. Is I want them to learn the skill of learning. I want them to learn how to learn. So that whatever it is they decide to learn, they can learn it because they've got that skill. And the second thing I really want my kids to have is I want them to have a lifelong love of learning. So they love learning, because you know then it means that they're interested in things. They know how to learn things. They're interested in things, whatever those things are that are going to come along later in life. They can do that. That they haven't sort of parked that. And I think for me, those are the two things that are kind of fundamentally important that I'm looking out of that. And you don't need to be educated or about a specific topic to do any of those things.
Yeah.
You're not highly educated, and if you don't think of yourself as an academic person, but you are interested in things, so you ask great questions, you keep on about a topic, and you're willing to learn how to learn, then actually you're demonstrating that for your children, and you're going to go on that journey with you. In fact, you get a bunch of homeschooling mums together, and we all get excited about the topics that we're doing. You know, oh, we're going to do this in chemistry. You know, oh, we're learning about this. And you go to Bible schools and you catch Toby and Michelle standing there gazing at the moon, discussing the phases of the moon, because that's what they're teaching their kids. They're teaching astronomy. You know, so like all of a sudden you find as an adult that you are getting an education as well. And, and it's so much nicer and it's much more fun and it makes so much more sense and relevant when you come back to it as an adult. Like maths makes so much more sense to me now.
So Andrew,
I'm mentally ready for it at 10.
So Andrew, what's your role as far as homeschooling goes? I mean, you're going to work presumably, and like Gnomes is home all day with the kids, and then you come home. Have you got a role as far as homeschooling goes?
Yeah, my role is to pay for it all.
Yeah, fair enough.
Somebody's got to do that.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah, it definitely makes things a lot easier. So
I mean, the other aspect that you mentioned before, Gnomes, was the Bible study in the evenings, and I'm just intrigued to hear a short little snippet about that, if we've got a moment.
Sure, yeah. So obviously, actually paying for things is the smallest part of the role. So I guess the other thing is a few things. It's important to have like a united front, I guess, or ideas about what you're looking to achieve between the two of you.
Both be pro homeschool.
Yeah, you've got to both be pro homeschool, otherwise it's going to be tricky. So that's important. And then I think, like for me, I see my role is to sort of help to encourage Naomi and to remind her when she gets into the weeds or into the woods on something that this is the big picture and we're making progress and these are our long-term goals and it's okay. And from my perspective, things are working well and I totally support it. And I think you're doing a great job.
And I cry on this shoulder and then I cry on this.
Yeah. So, you just need to make sure, you just need to, I need to keep this up as well. And so there's that. And then also engage with the kids. So talk to them, be interested in their day, you know, find out, try and drag out of them what they were doing. We still get I still get, you know, how's your day? Good.
And then I'll say, Juliet's got something to show you in her bedroom. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, yes, Daddy, come in here. Da, 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 da. And then I say, and she's got something in the fridge she needs to show you too. And she's like, oh, yes, I did that too.
Yeah,
oh.
So just because they're being homeschooled doesn't mean that they give better answers than any other kids. You know, I think that's what
Nice to know.
yeah. So I guess yeah. So like I said, like just coming home and being interested, finding out about their day, which sort of helps their variety. And then one of the other things which we've done this off and on. I'm not going to pretend to everybody that I've always done this or I've always done it consistently or I've always done it well. So just, you know, we're not pretending we're going to gild the lily or anything about that. But for each of the kids, I dedicate, I don't know, like 20 or 30 minutes to spend with them each week, and we just have some time, just me and Juliet or just me and Josiah, and we have like 20 or 30 minutes doing Bible study together. And I heard a brother talk about it one time at a Bible school, and I thought that that's a great thing to do, so I do that. When the kids were smaller, like I just chose things that I was interested in or I thought were easy, and we just have like 10 or 15 minutes and we talk about a psalm or we talk about a couple of verses and maybe do some coloring or some things like that. Now the kids are a bit older, and I didn't do this last year, but we started again this year, and the kids really missed it. So I started in 2021 and we've done that once a week for each of them. And with Josiah, we're looking at Abraham, and with Juliet, we're looking at Ruth. And I just spent some time with them and just we just work through the story, those stories, we talk about it, and I try and help them with the lessons, some of the lessons, and sort of connect that with their lives. You know, you just have little chunks. You don't want it to take too long. But yeah, and I kind of feel like or think like I'm, I guess, trying to convey some of what I'm interested in and how I think that they should do Bible study and how I think that they should learn or think about some of those things. It gives me an opportunity, you know, I guess, sort of with homeschooling, you get the opportunity to pass on your culture and your ideas and your values, and they don't have any, you're not competing with anybody. You just get to beam your values and your prejudices and biases and, you know, whatever.
Which every teacher does.
Into them.
Yeah.
So one last question.
Sorry, Andrew also.
One last question. What would you say to anyone who's thinking about, you know, someone who's listening now, what would you say to them who's thinking about homeschooling, going, can I do it? Or, you know, is this going to be good for my kids? Or what would be your thoughts? Just briefly, because we're pretty well out of time.
Yeah.
I'd say believe in yourself. You would be able to do it. It's much easier than you think. You think it's much scarier than it actually is. And you don't do anything to start with. So you pull them out of school and you don't do any schooling for months.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So you've got, so I'd say, yeah, believe in yourself, and yes, you can do it. The other thing I'd say would be nothing's set in stone. Like, you can pull them out and you can try it, but you can put them back in school. Like, it doesn't matter. You can put them back in and then pull them back out again. Like, it kind of, it's not, any decision you make, it's not set in stone. And what I mean by you pull them out and you do nothing, that was my question when we were sitting there in a a parent course thingy meeting for parents thinking about homeschooling. I said, so I've pulled my kids out of school. We wake up the next day. What do we do? And the veteran homeschooler said, nothing. And I'm like, what? She said, nothing. What? And it's a really bizarre concept, but what you need to do is you need to de-school. If you're pulling out of school, this is. If you are starting homeschooling from preschool, you just carry on life and you start weaving academic-y stuff into your daily routine, and you just grow with your child. So when you read a story, you get them to talk it back, you talk about the characters, you talk about the language, you talk about the vocabulary, and then that's reading done for the day. If you're pulling them out of school, you need to de-school, and it's roughly 1 month for every year they've been at school. So we didn't do any stuff until after Easter. Pulled the kids out in December. We didn't do anything till May. And you don't do anything by coercion and anything that will damage your relationship in that time period. Because this person and you as a whole family have been used to getting up, getting dressed, get your lunch packed, gobble down some breakfast, in the car, off to school. Mum comes home, she catches up from everything, dashes out, picks the kids up, then you're off to swimming lesson, and then you're off to this, and quick race home and do dinner, and then we're, you know, you're used to that sort of lifestyle. But now you've got to create your own rhythm and routine, and actually you need all the boundaries off to feel your way and to just focus on relationship, because you're not going to get your kid to do spelling for you if you haven't built a relationship. Like, it's just not going to work. So by doing nothing, what we did was we established a little bit of a routine. They had house jobs they had to help with in the morning, and then we did a Bible reading with breakfast, and we did a Bible reading with Daddy at night. That was our structure, plus lunch and plus dinner. And that was our routine, and that was our structure that we hung everything else on. My house was never cleaner. That first year of homeschooling, it was so clean. And then after breakfast and we'd done our Bible reading, I would just let the kids go, and I would potter around and do my things or sit and knit, and they would go and play, because they also had a relationship with each other that they needed to repair and to develop. So I'd let them go and play, and they would do that. And after about an hour and a half, I would hear that this is disintegrating. So at that point, I would say, how about we go to the park? So then we would go to the park, and they would play happily for another hour or hour and a half, and then you'd hear it starting to disintegrate, or they'd come up and say, can we go home now? Sure, we'll go home and have lunch. What would you like to do after lunch? Shall we go to the library? Let's go to the library. And off you go to the library. And then you'd have a child at the library who finds a book on volcanoes and says, I want to study volcanoes. And you're like, sure, let's find a bunch of books on volcanoes. And here, let's buy a scrapbook and let's draw a big volcano on the front. And then that got put away for 3 weeks. And then 3 weeks later, they went, I haven't done any volcanoes, Mum. Let's do some volcanoes. So out we come with the volcanoes. And we went to MOTAT, and we went to the museums, and we met up with other families, and we would turn up to the swimming lessons, because that's just where other homeschool families were, but we weren't doing lessons, but we'd just be there. We would have play dates with other families. We went to the Easter CYC camp. We went to people's places for lunch. We were doing Sunday school. We're doing, we just did life. And then we started to weave in some thinking skills and some themes that we were working on and some topics, and we started reading our maths curriculum story, and then we started to work in some handwriting, and slowly, but that first year was pretty nurture year. But after about May, we started to work some other stuff in. But actually, just the Bible readings, you do so many literacy skills with the Bible readings. It's good old English, so it's challenging.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by nothing. You don't do anything that's going to cause you a whole lot of angst.
Yeah.
While you're learning how to be with each other 24/7, because that's just hard enough.
Okay, so I'll be really quick. So it is definitely easier than you think. It's not scary. It's definitely easier than you think. But don't just just jump in. You need to think about what are you looking for, what do you want.
Yeah.
You know, need to make sure that you're both on board.
Yeah.
You know, it's a team effort. Even if though one of you is going to do most of it, it's a team effort. You both need to be on board for it.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. And make sure you're clear about what your objective, like what your purpose is. And remember, like Naomi said, you don't have to stick with, you don't, you know, just because you've decided to do it doesn't mean that you have to carry on doing it. You can always change your mind and do something else. We often used to just say, we're homeschooling at the moment. You know, what happens next year, we don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I guess the other thing just to remember is that whatever you're doing, whether you're homeschooling or not, like it's not, you know, you can, it's not a sin to send your kids to state school. You know, you still need to be involved in your kids' lives, have a relationship. All those things are important too. It's not, you know, that's, you know, that's something we needed to learn as parents, but you know, maybe it comes naturally to other people. But it's still important to have a relationship with your kids and do that. So that would be what I would say.
Cool.
It's easier than you think.
Well, thank you so much. We have covered a wide range here. We have really gone wild in this, but we've really appreciated your perspective. It has certainly opened our eyes to what this looks like in the homeschooling world, and even just being intentional parents, really, and building that relationship. It's for all of us, whether our children are in a state school or whether they're being schooled at home, that is the ultimate goal, is to be able to build that relationship that helps children to be able to become integrated adults into the world that, you know, are really contributing to the world in the way they should. So really appreciate you taking this time to share this with us this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much.